As the Headless Horseman was riding his warhorse through the forest, suddenly a bolt of lightning struck right in front of him. Following that, a woman draped in a cloak emerged from the lightning. Seeing the Headless Horseman's towering and formidable figure, the woman couldn't help but feel compelled to sing a song for him. However, the Headless Horseman, lacking ears, wasn't interested in listening, but the woman still forcibly rooted him to the spot and began to sing. In this way, the powerful Headless Horseman was trapped inside a magical box, which seemed to contain a whole new world. The woman then uttered a spell and summoned a new demon from inside. The next day, this demon began hunting humans, its eyes turning white before each attack. When Abbie and Ichabod received the call and arrived at the scene, they only found 2 bodies that had been gruesomely dissected. Ichabod found a footprint by the well in the backyard. It was clear that it was not left by a human. He took a packet of dragon's breath from his pocket and poured it into the footprint. The dragon's breath would heat up upon contacting a demon's essence. Sure enough, flames burst forth from the footprint.
Evil has returned to Sleepy Hollow.
Abbie and Ichabod then returned to the archive room to look up information. At the same time, the medical examiner sent a report indicating that the wounds on the bodies contained a large amount of cinnabar. Ichabod suddenly recalled a type of demon from the Tang dynasty known as the War Demon, drawn to the energy of rage and armed conflict, with their red skins wrapped in cinnabar. However, these demons typically appear as servants, so it was certain that someone had summoned it here.
Someone evil.
Someone powerful.
There is a new player in town.
Ichabod then began reading Benjamin's notes. They recorded that such demons had appeared on battlefields before, and ordinary bullets could not harm them, leading to their rampant success in battles. Only when a secret letter from General Washington arrived did the tide of the battle turn. Ichabod guessed that the secret letter must contain a way to defeat the demon, so everyone started to investigate relics from that war. Jenny, using her skills, located a restaurant built entirely in a medieval style. The owner had specifically collected a large number of antiques for guests to appreciate. Abbie found the secret letter in a display case, and she and Ichabod worked together to stealthily steal it. Back in the car, Ichabod began to decrypt the contents of the letter. However, at that moment, Abbie received orders from her superiors to go after a drug manufacturing gang, so she dropped Ichabod back at the archive room. Through decoding the letter, Ichabod learned that the demon was very sensitive, attracted greatly by human fear and gunpowder. The demon's greatest weakness was when its eyes turned white. At that moment, Jenny suddenly thought of Abbie, who was on a mission. A large-scale shootout was exactly the kind of scene the demon thrived in. By then, Abbie and her team had reached the base of the drug gang. A boy tried to escape through a window and out the back door. Mick asked Abbie to stay outside while he chased the boy. Just then, a monster was watching them. When Abbie spotted the red figure on the roof, she instantly realized something was wrong and quickly ran towards the direction Mick had gone. As Mick subdued the boy, the demon appeared behind him. Before Mick could react, the demon slashed his throat. Arriving on the scene, Abbie quickly opened fire, and the demon, its eyes white, was immediately injured and fled the scene. The fleeing demon was just spotted by Ichabod and Jenny arriving on the scene, and Jenny decisively fired her gun to draw its attention. They lured the demon into a warehouse. Ichabod told Jenny to hide and look for a chance to shoot while he tried to make the demon's eyes turn white. As the demon approached Ichabod step by step, Jenny kept her rifle scope trained on the demon's head, but just as the monster's eyes turned white, Jenny slipped when she was about to shoot, and the monster found Jenny's figure. Fortunately, Abbie arrived just in time to save Ichabod. Although they successfully defeated the monster this time, the mastermind behind the monster did not appear, and a greater danger is about to loom over Sleepy Hollow once again. A woman robbed a hearse on the main road, and when she opened the lid of the coffin, there was a white bone lying inside. She recited a spell and placed a totem on the skeleton's chest. Instantly, the entire skeleton was swarmed by dense, crawling bugs. The woman, named Pandora, is the owner of the mystical box. Her reason for awakening General Howe was to gather more energy. Due to a grudge that spanned back 200 years between General Howe and Ichabod, Pandora deliberately lured him to the town of Sleepy Hollow. That night, 3 students ventured into an abandoned palace for fun, only to have the resurrected General Howe appear suddenly behind them. 2 of the students ran outside immediately upon seeing him, while the other boy was scared into retreating step by step. As General Howe gestured, a group of soldiers armed with long spears burst through the stone walls, all of them once under General Howe's command. By the time Ichabod and Abbie arrived, the boy had already become a cold corpse. General Howe, leading his troops, marched straight towards Ichabod. Upon recognizing their faces, Ichabod didn't hesitate to open fire. Abbie shot General Howe in the hand, but in the next second, his hand healed back to its original form. Seeing that the weapons in their hands could not harm them, they turned and ran outside. General Howe also led his troops in pursuit, but as soon as they saw the rising sun outside, they instantly burrowed into the ground. Ichabod, who had escaped, was puzzled. General Howe had died on the battlefield 200 years ago, yet why was he reappearing here? After consulting extensive documents, they discovered that General Howe's current form is known as a Draugr, a rare type of undead warrior. Draugrs typically move at night and hide deep underground during the day. To find a way to destroy the Draugrs, Ichabod and his team went to the place where General Howe was originally buried. As soon as they arrived, they accidentally triggered a mechanism, and suddenly a blue flame burst out from above. Ichabod knew this was no ordinary flame. It was the legendary Greek fire that could not be extinguished. As the flames drew closer to Ichabod and Abbie, in a moment of urgency, the assistant shot the wall's code lock, destroying it. Unexpectedly, this method worked. As the stone door of the secret chamber slowly rose, the blue flame was instantly drawn back in. After leaving there, Ichabod remembered a great fire from the past. At that time, General Howe had betrayed death and summoned a group of Draugrs, but hours after they invaded England, the entire city was covered in a massive fire. To this day, no one understands the reason behind it. The flame in the tomb was identical to the fire from that time. Ichabod guessed that this type of flame should be able to burn the bodies of the Draugrs. They then notified Jenny and Joe and acquired fire lance guns that could hold Greek fire, to prevent the fire from spreading and destroying the whole town. They planned to lure the Draugrs into a tunnel and then destroy them. Night soon fell. Today was the annual Christmas celebration, and all the residents were dressed in bizarre costumes, playing in the streets. General Howe and his army of Draugrs also appeared. The surrounding residents initially did not feel anything amiss, but when General Howe ordered the Draugr army to line up and raise their guns, they began to feel a hint of fear. Fortunately, Ichabod and his group arrived just in time, and he charged forward to battle the Draugr army. Seeing this, General Howe also advanced with his long sword, and Ichabod taunted General Howe verbally while fighting. When the moment was right, Ichabod immediately fled into the tunnel, and without hesitation, General Howe followed. Once all the Draugrs were inside the tunnel, Jenny and the others came up with their fire lance guns.
Your army's defeated, Howe. It's over.
I will not give you the satisfaction. Turncoat.
Although Ichabod and his group successfully eliminated the Draugr army, Pandora seemed to have gathered enough power, and a flower once again blossomed on the magical tree she was cultivating. This is a strikingly beautiful queen bee, whose kiss can end lives by instilling terror, with every person stung by her dying in a fit of rage. One evening, Chrisdale was working in his office when suddenly a bee flew past him. He carefully trapped it under a cup. Unexpectedly, the bee was incredibly strong and managed to escape the cup, biting Chrisdale in the process. Just as Chrisdale was sucking on the back of his hand in pain, the bee that had just bitten him called forth a large swarm of its brethren. The next morning, Chrisdale, despite his injured face, continued to go to work. However, Chrisdale's temper was extremely volatile. During case reviews, he impulsively decided to incarcerate not only the accused but their attorney as well. Seeing that the situation was amiss, Ichabod stepped forward to try and calm Chrisdale's emotions. During the conversation, Ichabod saw a figure made of bees. Before Ichabod could get a clear look at the figure, Chrisdale, in agony, collapsed onto the table. Abbie quickly stepped forward to check on him and found that Chrisdale's body was covered in pustules. Ichabod looked back at where the figure had been, but by then, there was nothing there. Based on the bee found at the scene and the toxins in the victim's body, Ichabod discovered a type of demon called a Sequient in ancient texts. These demons possess potent toxins, and everyone bitten by them slowly dies in fear. However, the books did not record their weaknesses, only leaving behind a cryptic phrase.
When comes the beauty from Caribbee, she spends her time in Porto, Spain, watching foul flies roost in the spice tree under which Sir Chadwick prays on bended knee.
At that moment, Abbie received a call from a colleague. Another female victim had died under mysterious circumstances, and her death was identical to Chrisdale's. But as Abbie and Daniel were on their way back to the police station, the usually calm Daniel became unusually irritable. He drove the car recklessly on the main road, speeding despite Abbie's attempts to calm him down. After arriving at a wooded area, Daniel forcefully pulled Abbie out of the car. Fortunately, Abbie's years of combat training paid off, and she quickly subdued Daniel. When they discovered bite marks on Daniel's body, Abbie locked him in a secure room. At this time, Ichabod deciphered the cryptic phrase in the ancient book. Each line of the phrase represented a different herb, and combined, these herbs formed an antidote. Jenny and Joe then went to a shop where the owner, Azaka, was a witch doctor who enjoyed collecting herbs, but as they were conducting the transaction, Azaka, upon touching Jenny, suddenly underwent a transformation.
A shadow older than time falls over your soul. You shall be claimed.
Your fate has changed.
Azaka, what the hell?
Protect her.
Confused, Jenny left with the herbs. Although they now have the antidote, they still need to quickly eliminate the original form of the sequient. Otherwise, more people will continue to die. Bees typically do not stray far from their nest, so Abbie connected the locations of the 3 victims. She soon pinpointed a deserted building on the map, and they geared up and headed there. To quickly locate the sequent's lair, they decided to split up and search separately. At this moment, Pandora was removing flowers from the magic tree, each blooming black flower representing a different emotion. When Ichabod arrived, Pandora was not at all surprised. She even thanked him and his team for cleaning up her messes. It turns out, releasing monsters from the magical box is easy. The hard part is dealing with them afterward. Every monster Ichabod and his team eliminated was actually helping Pandora solve her problems. As the demonic tree behind Pandora glowed, she turned and walked towards its roots. Seeing this, Ichabod chose not to confront Pandora directly but instead quickly found Abbie to explain the situation in the cave. Ichabod handed Abbie a bottle containing hydrogen cyanide and instructed her to go inside and destroy the sequent's beehive, while he stayed outside to distract the creature's original form. When Ichabod and Abbie met again inside the cave, they saw Pandora preparing to leave. They rushed to pursue Pandora, but the entrance to the demonic tree quickly healed shut. These are 3 berserker demons, but the man uses them as if they were mere dogs. The man took out a stone emitting red powder and brought it close to the berserkers for them to sniff.
That's it. Go, Reggie.
At that moment, Jenny was practicing boxing with Joe when suddenly her body emitted a burst of red light and sporadic images appeared in her eyes. Fortunately, Joe noticed in time and brought Jenny back from her trance. Watching the red glow fade from Jenny, they were both filled with confusion. This all started from an accident the day before. When Jenny tried to seize a red crystal, it suddenly turned into a blood mist and merged into her body, turning her skin red ever since. Jenny and Joe immediately reported the situation to Abbie. Nearby, Ichabod speculated that it might be a divine stone. As they were discussing how to extract the divine stone, Jenny suddenly heard the monstrous roar of the berserkers. Then, the 3 berserkers charged out of the forest. Ichabod quickly grabbed his weapon and attacked, but the bullets not only failed to harm the berserkers but were absorbed by them and converted into their own strength. Jenny then drew her dagger and charged forward, her red skin causing the opposing berserkers to drop their weapons. Seeing that close combat also couldn't eliminate the berserkers, they had no choice but to quickly retreat into an underground tunnel. Through the tunnel, they returned to the archives room, where Ichabod found information on these creatures in a notebook. They were known as Nordic berserkers, extremely volatile in nature but very persistent towards their targets. Once a prey scent is locked by a berserker, they will relentlessly pursue until they successfully capture their quarry. The notebook recorded that berserkers gain strength with each attack but are extremely fearful of a herb called mistletoe. Just then, Jenny's body turned red again. When Jenny regained consciousness from her vision, she could not remember what had just happened. Meanwhile, Ichabod and Joe were tracking the berserkers, having ground mistletoe into a powder and smeared it on their arrows. But when they actually fought the berserkers, they discovered that mistletoe no longer harmed them, leaving them no choice but to flee by car. Back in the archives room, Ichabod began researching the reason. According to past incantations used to summon berserkers, this summoner must have used some artifacts, which is why mistletoe was ineffective against the berserkers. Faced with such a formidable foe without a weakness, Ichabod suddenly remembered a saying: when facing an invincible enemy, you must make the enemy defeat themselves. They then prepared a special plan. Joe first drew some of Jenny's blood, then followed Ichabod and Abbie into the forest. After they all geared up with climbing ropes, Joe smashed a bottle of the blood on the ground. Soon, the three berserkers caught the scent in the air, but by the time the berserkers followed the scent to this location, Ichabod and his team had already vanished from the spot. While the berserkers were still searching for their target, Ichabod and the others carefully descended from the trees. They then quickly poured Jenny's blood on each berserker. By the time the three berserkers noticed Ichabod and his team, Jenny's blood scent had already covered their bodies. Before long, only one berserker remained. Seeing this, Ichabod directly drew his long sword, and as he pierced the heart of the last berserker, all three turned to ashes and drifted into the air. But when they returned home, they discovered Jenny was gone, leaving only strange writings on the wall. At this moment, Jenny, with a blank expression, arrived at Pandora's residence. She dipped her glowing red hands into the pool in front of her, and instantly, a crack opened in the magic tree beside her. Pandora, accompanied by a man in black, walked out from within.